With 65 people in the business now, I mean, if you've one person that's not culturally the right fit, that can have a huge impact on your business. I can't do it all myself. I need my team. Done is better than perfect. There's nothing that gives me greater joy than to watch many of the team, to see them grow. I also have to remind myself I don't have to provide all the answers. I can coach the answers now out of the leadership team.
Hello and welcome back to Career Conversations, a podcast from Verisearch where we speak with senior leaders, business owners and CEOs about the decisions that have shaped their careers and gain insights into leadership. I'm Richard Greenwood. Today I'm joined by Edwina Flynn, CEO of Wood Innovations, a leading importer, distributor and wholesaler of premium flooring across the UK and Ireland. Alongside leading the business, Edwina is passionate about developing people, while also giving her time to a range of community organisations and charitable initiatives. Today we'll explore Edwina's career journey, the leadership lessons she has learned along the way, and the advice that she has for both current and future leaders. Edwina, good morning. Welcome to Career Conversations.
Good morning, Richard. Thank you so much for having me. It's lovely to be here.
How's your summer been so far?
My summer has been really good. The weather has been amazing, so I am trying to soak up every good day that I possibly can. I love the sunshine, so it's been really good. Busy, but good.
Good. And we've had a good chat there before the episode's begun, and we've been talking about all things leadership and career. So look, thank you for joining me today, and I look forward to diving into some of this with you.
Well, thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm very humbled to be given this opportunity, so thank you so much.
Good. So before we jump into Wood Innovations, some of your community work and talking about leadership and career, take us right back. You grew up in Cooley Peninsula in Ballurgan. So tell us what life was like back then.
So I grew up in a wee town called Ballurgan, and it was actually Rockmarshall, so County Louth, and any GAA fans will know that we had a great season this year. The Louth football team, GAA team, did really, really well there in the championship there, which just finished the weekend there with Mayo being the All-Ireland champions. So grew up in the countryside. I have three siblings. I'm the eldest. My mum and dad. My dad was a builder and a farmer, and my mum a housewife, but then went on to work just once we grew up, basically. So life was good. Countryside, growing up in the country, it was busy. There was no such thing as a lie-in the morning. You were up early, helping out at the farm. We all had part-time jobs. I think me too, being the eldest, I grew up quite quickly as well, and there was a lot of responsibility as the eldest child. I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that. But very happy childhood memories. Countryside was a lovely place to grow up. And I suppose close to the likes of, the beach, where we would have spent our summers, or else taking hay and helping at the farm, picking spuds. That's what we did to try and earn a few pound too as well. So lovely, I have to say, I had a lovely, lovely childhood.
And growing up on a farm and, being involved in all those jobs at an early stage of life, has that had a significant impact on you today? And do you still carry some of that?
Yes, I definitely do. I do find it hard to lie in the mornings, so that has stayed with me all of my life. And I think your work ethic, as well, especially from mummy and daddy. And I know that I instill that in my two children too as well. I probably do. My expectations, even from a leadership perspective, probably go back to my childhood days. But yeah, I would still, and again, being outside in nature, being on the countryside, all of that, I still sort of take that with me. So I do. So it has carried me through my life and my career, and the woman that I am today.
And during that time, going through school, working on the farm, growing up in the countryside, from a career perspective, did you have an idea about what you wanted to do?
So my first job, you had your babysitting jobs when you were very, very young. I mean, I was babysitting from 11, so you got that sort of independence. And then I went into hospitality. I worked in a local bar, and then I progressed on to hotel work, the Carrickdale Hotel. So back then, my ambition was hospitality. That's what I really wanted to get in because I really enjoyed it. I had two operations on both of my feet, which were quite serious when I was young, around 16. It did have its perks, mind you. I used to get into nightclubs free because I was coming on crutches. But it sort of physically, I thought I wouldn't be fit to actually take that on because the hospitality is quite demanding physically on you. Now that didn't sort of stop me doing that because I worked in the Carrickdale Hotel for 8 years, part-time and full-time during the summertime. But what I went on to do after school, we'd leaving cert because I lived in the south of Ireland. So I went on to do, went to the SRC, which was Newry Tech back in the day, and I did business studies. And the business studies opened, lots of opportunities for me. I did take a year to do accountancy on its own, and I thought I was going to be an accountant. But I went in to do placement one time, and I felt the accountants were too quiet for me, and I was the only one in the room talking. So I thought, I don't think this is the right one for me. And then I went on and I finished my degree later on. So I did part time, but I progressed with the business studies because that just it just gave me a variety of opportunities that I could walk into. So I didn't back then. It was hospitality. So where I am today, that wasn't what I had initially planned to do at the outset.
And it's interesting, they would say that industries like hospitality, particularly for those who are entering the workforce at a young age, can learn a lot of soft skills. What were some of the big influences again at that time that you would again carry today and still bring into the workplace and maybe instill in your children and other young people?
Well, I said this, funny Richard, recently a couple of years ago in the Canal Court Hotel. Whenever I was fortunate to present the President's Award to John and Paddy McParland, who were one of my employers. They're both owners of the Canal Court and Carrickdale Hotel, and I would encourage anybody to get into hospitality at some stage of their life because those transferable skills, so your communication, the ability to basically interact and communicate with people from all walks of life, that has basically come with me throughout my career. I see it in my two children. I encouraged my daughter and she went into hospitality. She's still in hospitality. I can see the difference that has made in her. My son, who was involved in sports, he was very social because he had the sporting element, so you can see how that's translated. So certainly, the communication, the confidence too as well, and even simple things like we have seen it where maybe some people coming into the industry, even the housekeeping piece, knowing how to make a cup of tea, those skills just are not coming the way they used to be. Your cleanliness, being diligent. I think back even any of your listeners that remember Lacey's nightclub, which I worked in for many's a night, how we left that at the end of the night so that it was ready for whether it was a wedding the next day or the carvery coming in the next day. So all of those things I was able to take with me in every role that I was fortunate to fall into after that.
And when you left Newry Tech, you joined Wood Innovations, and now as the CEO, your career has almost come full circle. But tell us about that first journey in Wood Innovations.
Yeah, so that's 30 years ago, Richard. June just passed, 1996. And I was just after finishing my Higher National Diploma in Business Studies. And the two founders, Philip and Dan, went to Newry Tech and they were looking for a general manager. So they were basically just starting out in business. So back then we started in two porta cabins down in Warren Point, just next door to the Aylesford House Hotel was there. Or the Aylesford House wasn't a hotel, yeah, the Aylesford House, and Narrow Water Filling Station. And there was the three of us and then a warehouse warehouse manager. And the four of us, basically started the business up for a couple of years until I started recruiting for additional resources. So my start time was 8 o'clock in the morning. I used to drive from Rockmarshall, which took me about 35 minutes. It was very different. The business was just starting up. So I went in and you were doing everything. I mean, you were doing sales, you were doing accounts. The only human resources was the warehouse manager. You were dealing with the haulage company that would have been coming in the evening to load the lorries. I mean, there was evenings there that you would have had to maybe stay until 7 o'clock or so to basically do what had to be done and to basically help the business grow, survive in those first few years. So a very different. I mean, I learned so much when I reflect back, because you just didn't go in to do one job, and definitely those skills that I learned in hospitality, I mean, allowed me to interact and engage and communicate with, because I was, interacting with loads of different people. So it was very different. It was very busy. I was a young single girl. I was 24, was I back then? And or less, I can't even do the maths, Richard. 30 years, I'm 52, you do the maths. So 22, God, 22, when you think of it, going into a full-time job, 8 to 6 were the hours, Monday to Friday. But it was fantastic. I mean, I still had a part-time job, even on Friday, Saturday and Sunday, because your wages were a lot less then than they are now. And that was the way it was 30 years ago. I had a wee car to run. I was very fortunate to be still living at home, but I gave a wee bit of housekeeping into mummy and daddy. So yeah, it was fun, but it was hard work, and we learned a lot.
And you spent 9 years there first. First of all, how did the business grow over that time, and how did your role evolve?
Yeah, so the 9 years, I took a year out in between that because I went travelling. So I took a year out to go travelling to Australia in '99. But the business evolved, the business grew. We took on more people. I can't actually remember how many people. It was probably about maybe 8 of us before I left, maybe not even as much. You had a couple of sales rep. Well, one sales rep actually on the road. Yeah, you definitely had some. You had more operatives in the warehouse. I had 2 people in sales, customer services, helping me. I learned a lot. I mean, I'm thinking back to my interactions with the company accountant, where I was able to, bring accounts to trial balance at that point. And I, growing up, I always had that appetite for growing, for learning, for, even when I think of our IT provider that is still in the business today, or who still works very closely with us. When there was IT problems, I wanted to know what it was so that I could try and fix it rather than waiting for him to come down and fix it. So you threw yourself into everything. And I suppose there's a plus and a minus with that, because when you do step away from the business, because you know so much, it can be a bit of a disadvantage to companies when, especially if staff move on. And I have seen that throughout my career. But then it was that I wasn't dependent on him coming to fix it. I could get it fixed there and then. So learned lots. I mean, we'd our ups and downs. When I think back, you were a credit controller at one point, and then a salesperson on the other, 2 hats. And then you were trying to get the money in so that you could pay your suppliers too as well. Then you were trying to generate the sales, so you had that money to chase. So there was lots of different hats, and you had to sort of flip between them at loads of times throughout those years.
And did you naturally fall into one of those hats more so than the other? You'd obviously potentially trained to be an accountant initially and stepped away from that. But you've got a lot of sales experience too.
Yeah, I suppose, no, I didn't really. I mean, I loved the interaction with the people. So I did enjoy, I can't say I enjoyed the sales. I enjoyed the customer service element of it. But I suppose I had to give them all equal, because the business was growing. And then as we grew, you could get individuals in to basically support you in those roles. So you could get sales stroke customer services. So then I could work on the accounts, for example. And then you needed somebody in the accounts department. So you needed a bookkeeper, you needed somebody in marketing. Um, so I suppose I had to be that all rounder, and you also had to be responsible and accountable if things went wrong. So an awful lot of it did still fall on me, and I suppose you had to know everything that was going on back then, because you know you two founders there, and they depended on you heavily as well when they were out trying to grow the business, trying to grow the customer base, going out sourcing new products, and you know that would mean going overseas. So you mightn't have had them, you know, for some time, maybe a week to 2 weeks in the office. So you were very much running the business in those early days.
And at a time then, after those 9 years, you pivoted, stepped away from wholesale and flooring entirely and moved into property. So tell us about that. What motivated that change of industry?
So I had my daughter Katie in 2004, and I mean, Wood Innovations was doing really well, and the business was growing. But back then, I knew that I couldn't commit to those same hours, and I think too. Um, at that time in my life, I knew that I had sort of gone as far as I could in Wood Innovations in terms of my own potential, and that it was time to sort of look elsewhere. And that wasn't a reflection on Wood Innovations because it was growing, but I needed something else to sort of challenge me. And yeah, to just take me to that next level. So I reduced my hours so that I could look after Katie, you know, so on a part-time basis. So, and the opportunity came in Best Property Services to join their business as office manager. And that's what I did then in 2004. And I remained there for 16 years. So it was, I mean, it was a very intense interview. I actually can still remember in the boardroom, the references were thoroughly checked. I mean, they checked me in terms of my background. So it was quite intense. And I remember thinking back then, I don't think I'm going to get this, but I did get it. And I'd have to say, I had 16 really, really fantastic years in terms of my own development.
And a very different type of environment, I'm sure. How did that shape your leadership style? And would it have been a different environment because two founder-led family businesses, so similar in terms of structure and ownership?
There was a lot of similarities, and yet there was a lot of difference. I suppose the first thing when I went into Best Property Services, we had a management team, and you had other directors in the business. With Innovations, when I left, there was just the two founders. I was very much running the office, but that management team didn't exist back then. And you know, I was able to take a lot, probably of the people skills. Certainly, the people skills was one area I could really take to Best Property Services. But then I learned, and I mean, I got so many opportunities. When I was there, I was very fortunate, and it stretched me. So the big difference was definitely, yeah, two founder led, two family businesses, but there was more structures in place, and you had different departments because there was residential, there was commercial, there was valuations, there was land. So I went into a business, you know, that business was established in 1890. So I went into it in 2004. So it was well established. Um, yeah, well established, and with good structures in place.
Following that, then you stepped back into Wood Innovations, initially in a consultancy capacity, but now are the CEO of the business. For those less familiar, tell us about Wood Innovations and the work you do now.
So, Wood Innovations, 30 years on from the business that I joined in 1996, has remained the same in terms of we're importers and distributors of smooth flooring. The flooring has definitely moved on 30 years. I mean, when I came back 6 years ago and saw how, you know, it had basically evolved. It was, when I think back, what we used to have available to us 30 years ago and what we have now. So we import and we distribute smooth flooring, that's in the way of laminate flooring, vinyl flooring, engineered flooring, which is like your semi-solid. We used to do hardwood flooring. We don't do that now. We also have accessories to go with those floors, so the likes of your skirting, your door bars, any of that. And most recently, in the last number of years, we have introduced wall panelling into the business as well. So we have 2 sites. We have our head office is based in Carnbane Industrial Estate. So we moved there about 4 years ago from Warren Point. That was where we initially set up. And we also have a distribution centre in Walsall in Birmingham. And I try to go over there at least once a month to our distribution centre in Walsall. We supply the likes of carpet retailers, builders merchants, buying groups, tile shops, bathroom stores, anybody that you would see that would have flooring in their establishments. We're the wholesaler, so we don't supply direct to the public. So, and we do get people that will come to us, but we will signpost them to a local retailer in their area. We employ a team now of 65 people across the 2 sites. And we distribute to the island of Ireland and into GB as well. We're a very small fish in GB and in the pond, fish in the pond in GB. So we've got huge opportunity there in GB. So it's a family business. It was founder led. We had one founder that stepped away from the business 2 years ago, transitioned 2 years ago and stepped away completely last year. One of the founders remains in the business, and he has 4 sons in the business. So that's basically the set up currently today.
And you talked about initially not necessarily having a management team when you first worked in the business, but now you do. So what has been the importance of that evolution and having that management team and that structure in the business now?
So when I went back 6 years ago, the management team was there. And I know the founders won't mind me saying this, probably not the same structures that I would have liked. And I was able to sort of bring in terms of how regular meetings took place. And look, it's typical with businesses that are still growing and still, I suppose we 2 founders that were very entrepreneurial, very sales driven. So sales will always be number one. My ethos is very much I'm people and processes. So, I mean, when I came back into the business, it was great that there was a management structure in place, and it was right. How can I really, embed that in, put more structure, put more processes in place? So we have really built on that. And as the other founder stepped away from the business, the founder that still remains in the business, and me as the CEO, we now have the management team delivering the strategic priorities as well as the wider team of the business. So that's been hugely important, because the founders couldn't have done that all on their own. Or you need that team around to really deliver what the company vision is, what the strategic priorities are. So just really working on that structure. And, when I came back, there was, I think there was only 4 of us, 4 or 5. Our management team now is, there's take out, the founder, there's 8 now in total. So I've grown that over, in fact, most recently in the last couple of years. And, different departments evolve as the business grows. And then you need that expertise as well coming into the business.
And what's your approach to driving that change in a founder-led business?
I think the big thing that really helped was the formation of a board. So we're 4 years into a board. And when I reflect back, a very successful business, with no real plan on paper. The plan would have been in the 2 founders, I suppose, heads, and how that was maybe rolled out through the management team. So I go back to my structure and processes. So I'm very much it down on paper. So I mean, obviously they both saw the need in getting in the formation of a board, and we got some guidance and support through Invest NI, which was huge to the business as the business was growing and evolving. So that first piece, which puts really put the governance around the business, and very important for small businesses that are growing and that are evolving. So with that, I took a lot of time looking at where the business is, where the business is looking to go to. So we did a 5-year plan 6 years ago. That plan, then we revisited it last year after the founder had stepped away completely from the business, and we now have a 3-year plan in place. So part and parcel of that is looking at your people strategy, looking at the people that you need in the business. So if you've got a growth target, what do you need to deliver that? What are the resources? What people do you need? What about the warehouse capacity? What about the products? All of that. What about marketing? So I'm quite methodical when it comes to that. And you'll sit back and you'll look, and then you'll tweak it, because something might shift. Look at all we're facing with the geopolitical, how that has affected lots of businesses. And I look back at the headcount that we'd planned for last year had to be deferred to this year, and now we've deferred a few more to next year, but we're still on target for growing. The business has grown successfully, hugely successfully over the last 3 years. Last year we grew by 15.5%. The year before was 12%. The year prior to that was 10%. This year the ambitions is a little less. We want to strengthen the foundations this year. So looking at your leadership team, strengthening their capabilities, bringing expertise into the business, and really looking at the relationship, building that relationship of your management team, because I can't do it on my own. I need a team around me to help me basically, deliver and grow the business.
You mentioned creating a board in the business.
Yeah.
What have been some of the benefits of bringing in non-executive directors?
So we have one non-exec director on the board, our chair, who has been, who I was fortunate to know through my interaction and engagements with Vistage. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Vistage. So he's very knowledgeable. I suppose at the outset, Richard, what was really good was that I probably felt a wee bit isolated and a lonely voice with two founders that were two very strong characters. Now, I'm well fit to hold my own, but having somebody come in, they were able to be objective and, challenge all three of us in a very equal and neutral and safe space. The expertise that they can bring in, the accountability, holding me to account, and looking at the interests of the company. So that has been huge. Also, I look at, we did a strategy session there off-site in June, and I look at how that's evolved over the number of years. And I look at last year when we went off-site in October to do that 3-year plan. The management team can see the importance of the board too as well. And that was an evolution because they weren't used to this. So it's definitely helping you on your growth journey. It's keeping the business safe, keeping the business protected too as well, because there's huge elements around governance. But for me to have that mentor, to have that support, and then to challenge all of us from the right space. So it's providing guidance, providing expertise. So I would encourage any business, if they don't have a board, and if they're fortunate not to be able to bring non-execs into their business, definitely to do that.
What have been some of the biggest lessons that you've learned as you've stepped into the CEO role? You've talked about growth and people and management.
I can't do it all myself. I need my team. It can be quite lonely as well. So you need to make sure that I still work with a coach, and I've been working with a coach now since 2016. That's hugely important. It's also important to know that I can't know everything, and especially as the business grows, you have to trust the people that are in the roles and empower them. Give them that space to do the role that you've taken them in for as well. I suppose that the big thing is that I would have been big about rescuing people, and also thinking that I had to provide all of the answers. I don't have to provide all the answers. Through my coaching, I can coach the answers now out of the leadership team. I also have to remind myself, because sometimes I'm ready in there to fix and to solve, and you have to take yourself back and say, okay, Edwina, this is not your problem to fix. They know what the answer is. You've got to, and it can be quite difficult to watch, because they can get quite frustrated because they just want that answer. They want that fix. But once you give them that space, and it's fantastic to watch them grow and watch them come up with the answer. And then the thing too is, if they come up with it, if you give them the answer, it's your answer. But if they come up with the answer, what I've seen, and if it's a solution to a problem, they'll deliver on that. If it's your solution, it's a bit harder for that to be executed. But when they come up with the solution, then they'll take it to the end too as well.
And we talked about micromanagement and having to step away from that. Has that been a journey for you?
Yes, it has, to an extent, because I would have been quite a perfectionist back in the day, but I've definitely softened a lot. And you had to get, I suppose, you had to come to the realization that done is better than perfect. It doesn't have to be 100%, 70, 80% is okay. I would have micromanaged, and that's where my coaching, working with a coach, helped me with that, because I could recognize, those, I could recognize those traits in me. And I think from a leadership perspective, your job as a leader is very much to, let your people grow, empower them, give them the tools to succeed, bring out the best, unlock that potential. And that's something I'm still very passionate about. But I don't, a little bit, but I would have put a lot of, how would you say, not deadlines, I would have held myself to very high standards, is probably the best way of explaining it. So that's where the micromanaging and the perfectionist would have come in. So I have relaxed a little as I've got older.
Not necessarily a bad thing,
No.
holding yourself to high standards. What the maybe the challenge, or what you need to do is try and empower people to see the value in doing that as well.
Yes, absolutely. And again, I go back to done is better than perfect. There's nothing that gives me greater joy than to watch, and I've seen it. I'm very fortunate to see many of the team in Wood Innovations and the management team, to see them grow, to get them working with coaches, working with mentors, and seeing them succeed in their roles. And I've one young lady in particular, and she holds a very pressured role in the business. And when I look back 6 years ago, she didn't contribute a lot around the management table, and to see her confidence now and how she can command the room. And I remember one instance where she was linking in virtually, and some of the conversations would get sidetracked, and she just quite quickly, she just brought them back and said, I'm on time pressure here. Can we just get back to the agenda here? And I remember voice noting her later and saying, you might not have been physically in the room, but by God, you were in the room. So even just to watch that, and instilling confidence, letting them see their opportunities that they have within them, because there's opportunities and strengths in everybody, I believe.
And a leadership style that you've talked to me about is servant leadership.
Servant leadership to me is about giving back, and giving back, but not expecting anything in return. And I think, I got that a bit from Daddy. My dad was very involved in the local community, and if I reflect back and what he was involved in, and Mummy would often say that there's a lot of similarities, but given but not to expect that in return. And it's something I am very very passionate about. So I do work with a lot of local organisations in the community. I tend to say yes a lot of the time. I think I've carried that throughout my career, but it's something I enjoy, Richard, and I get a huge amount of satisfaction out of helping and giving, but not expecting anything in return.
And you are very involved in the community. You are involved in Uri Chamber of Commerce as a director and past president. You're a trustee on the board of Inspire, a large all Ireland wellbeing charity, and you're also involved in Women's Aid as well. So there's lots that you're involved in there, and clearly very important to you and your life. So tell us about how that's influenced your leadership and what you have been involved in.
It's important for me, with all of the organisations, is what I can do, to make it better, help it to make a difference is probably the word I'm looking for. And it is one of my values, and I carry it throughout everything. Is about making a difference. So what can I do? How can I make a difference? Um, I was fortunate in Uri Chamber whenever I had the role of president, that in my second year, my final year, I chose Women's Aid as my charity partner for the year. That was the first time that a president ever did that. Now, not just the funding opportunities that it gave Women's Aid, because that was one element, but for me to be able to give a platform to Women's Aid to raise more awareness about the work that Women's Aid does, why it exists, and that in itself was hugely important to Women's Aid as well. So that piece about, during my time, what can I do to make a difference? How can I help these organisations? I'm also involved in the Shamrock's fundraising committee. Once I stepped away from the chamber, all of these text messages came now that you've loads of time in your hand. So you're helping with fundraising there. So again, that's a voluntary role. Within Uri Chamber, you do your bit there, you're on the board. So the expertise that I can bring, it's great to be able to bring that to the board, bring it to the member organisations too as well. And I think, I if I look at the team, the employees in Wood Innovations, or Wood Innovations as a company, the company can see then, as a leader, I'm also doing my bit for the local community, and the community matters too as well.
And do you think it's important for someone to have or look to gain leadership experience in a community role if they're looking to step into a leadership role within a business?
Yeah, absolutely. Richard, interestingly, I had two calls earlier this year with two individuals that were looking, basically changing career, and were looking some guidance from me as to what direction to go in. And they've got huge expertise in the fields of their business. So I encourage them to look at going on to boards, even in non-exec capacity, and to go on to charity boards. There's, like, I'm on the board of Inspire, as you said, and what I've learned, like, there's different things that I can take from each of those boards that I can take back to my CEO role on a day-to-day. But the governance piece from a charity, from the Inspire, is fabulous. It's fantastic. But the expertise that you can give, that you can give as a non-exec role, and then what you're giving back to the community too as well, or whatever those industries are. So I encourage those two individuals, get on, give something back. Those boards are screaming out for expertise, and then it'll develop your skills as well as a non-exec director, so that you'll be able to take that. Because, I mean, I have all of those boards. I'm also a non-exec on Best Property Services, and all of those roles, I'm able to, those skills are transferable against all of the organisations that I'm involved in. So I can say that personally. So I would encourage anybody, if they have free time or make some time, get on a board, give a bit back, especially to the charity organisations that, for voluntary as well. Plus you feel amazing as well. It gives you that that you're giving something back.
You clearly have a lot going on. You've got work and your community roles. What do you like to do? How do you balance all of those things that are going on in your life?
Yeah. Some weeks demand more of me work-wise, and that's okay. So there's some weekends, it doesn't happen too often, but sometimes it does, that you have to do a bit of work over the weekend. And then sometimes my health and my family and that demands more of me. So that's how I tend to get balance. I always make sure I have something to look forward to each month. I'm very big into planning my month ahead. I'm very big into planning my week ahead. So I try to make sure that there's something, to nourish me, something to look forward to. If I can get out for a 20-minute walk 3 times a week, that's fantastic. That's a win for me. 20 minutes is not hard to fit into your working day. I do 2 PT sessions now a week. I do Pilates as well during the week. I'm also a member of our local Slimming World group. I'm there every Saturday morning at 11 o'clock unless I'm off somewhere else. I'm on the social team there, so I help out. So those are the sort of things that help me. It's making sure you have something to look forward to, and recognising too that if you are depleted a bit, okay, do I need to shift something here in the diary? I mean, yesterday I'd 6 meetings in the diary yesterday, and it was like one after another. And that can be quite heavy going. But I got out for my 20-minute walk. People will know me to say you can't pour from an empty cup. And you have to make sure that when your cup is full, you're given from your saucer. So it's only when you're overflowing. And, I think we all need to be mindful of that too as well. As leaders, we have to recognise, and you also have to think of the behaviours and what you're what you're modelling for your own team, because they will watch what you do. And I would be very transparent too in the organisation. So the team know that I will go out for a walk. I'll invite some of them to join me. I also do some of my one-to-ones. I do a walking and talking, which is brilliant because you can do so much of your one-to-one, whether it's 20 minutes or if it needs longer, and then you can finish off in the office after that too as well. So that's bringing, a bit of, it's getting your steps up, but it's also, encouraging that movement as well in the organisation as well. So it's a win-win for everybody.
And I'm going to bring you back around to talent, because earlier you spoke about the importance of nurturing talent and developing, leaders and managers in the business and the wider teams. So what qualities do you look for in people when you're hiring?
I'm very much for attitude, Richard. And when I reflect back even 30 years ago, and even my time in Best, we would have sat with CVs and you would have looked at the credentials and what qualifications they had, what technical skills they had. That to me now, I mean, it's very much get me. I mean, obviously you'll go through the proper procedure, when you're shortlisting candidates, but I want to look at them, I want to see what their attitude, I want to try and establish that culturally as well, are the right fit. With 65 people in the business now, I mean, if you've one person that's not culturally the right fit, that can have a huge impact on your business. And I've seen a couple of guys that have taken, that have come into me for jobs in Wood Innovations, and they've come off building sites. And I remember one in particular, he applied for a role that we had just filled. I interviewed him anyway. I knew that something would come up in the business for him. I didn't know what it was. And, because he had the right attitude. And he's still with us now. That's 5 years on. There's actually 2 that came in around the same time. And if you can get that work ethic, you can get that attitude. And it's you find those by asking questions that, what do they do outside work? It's not about, actually the work and what they've done, but what's the interest, outside that. So, so attitude, I know probably went off on a tangent there, but attitude and train for skill.
And what traits do you look for in your senior leaders? And are there some non-negotiables that you're always looking for?
Yeah, the same, the attitude, the culture. What we have introduced most recently in the last couple of years is we do emotional intelligence assessments. So if somebody is very close to being appointed, and if I'm down to the last 2, I will do an EI assessment. and I will look at those attributes. And I'm very conscious that as we had a number of members of our leadership team that were in the business a very long time, and then you're bringing new people in. So it's very important that culturally and even from a values perspective that we're all aligned as well. Because there's been a lot of change, and the business has changed in lots of different ways. But bringing those people in that are going to work, because psychological safety is huge, hugely important. And for me as a leader, I have to make sure that all of my leadership team and that everybody in the business, not just the leadership team, but most importantly the leadership team, that they have that psychological safety amongst each other.
Brilliant.
And it also will show you the areas that maybe you need to develop in that individual as well. So you're going in with your eyes wide open, and you're able to sit at the outset and say, okay, this is the development areas that you need. So, I'm very much about setting people up for success, Richard. The last thing you want is anybody to not succeed in the organisation. So let's do what we can to help them, because recruitment, it's costly. It takes a long time, especially in those leadership positions. You want to try and get it right the first time. Doesn't always happen that you get it right, but you want to give it a good chance, and them a good chance of succeeding as well.
Absolutely, and I think you're seeing more organisations and businesses looking to use different tools to assess people further, to make sure that not only can they do the role but fit. It's conversations that I'm having all the time about do people culturally fit, and do they align to the values and the strategy of the business?
Absolutely.
What career advice would you give to someone who's thinking about stepping into a senior leadership role, or who's maybe in a senior leadership role looking to develop?
There's a couple of things. Stay curious. If I reflect back on my journey, for the last number of years, I was always curious. I always asked questions. I wanted to learn more, find out more. So definitely stay curious. Don't be afraid to ask for feedback. And that can be hard to take, because you might not want to hear what the feedback is, but the only way you're going to learn is by getting honest feedback. I definitely believe that growth only happens in discomfort. So, get that feedback, stretch yourself, put yourself into situations that are going to help you become better, be better. Find a coach, a mentor that you can work alongside. Take those opportunities. Say yes. I'd say yes whenever you reached out to me. You say yes before you can say no, before you talk yourself out. And be kind to yourself too as well, because sometimes we can, and my experience, I'm probably my biggest critic, apart from my two children at times that are very open and honest with me. But yeah, we can tend to be a wee bit hard on ourselves, So yeah, stay curious. Be open to learning too as well. You need to continually invest in yourself, and I'm always looking at opportunities. Right, where can I learn? Whether it's whatever new things, even look, AI is big now at the minute. As leaders, we need to understand. We need to know what that how that is going to translate into the business. So you never stop growing. Every day is a school day. And my dad, Lord of Mercy, used to say, as I did courses, and he'd say, like, when are you going to stop doing these, Edwina? And I was like, I'm not. And I will continue to keep learning, keep growing, keep putting myself in difficult situations. So that would be my advice to anybody that's looking to go into leadership, that's in a leadership journey. And, surround yourself by those people that are going to help you, and you don't have to have all of the answers. You can coach the answers out of your team as well.
It's really good advice.
Thank you.
I'm very grateful for you saying yes to coming on, Edwina. So thank you.
Thank you.
It's been a great discussion this morning, and thank you very much.
Well, Richard, thank you very much for the opportunity. I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
Thank you to everyone who has listened to this episode of Career Conversations. I look forward to welcoming you back very soon with a fantastic guest who is going to dive into all things early careers and young talent. See you soon.